Hello friends, welcome to a new topic today. In this chapter, we are going to learn about pituitary tumors. So in the pituitary tumors, the first tumor which is important here is pituitary adenoma. Okay, first we will see the etiology of pituitary adenoma. So pituitary adenoma is a sporadic, in pituitary adenoma you see sporadic mutation in GS2. You see sporadic mutation involving GS2. We see sporadic mutation which is in GS2, that is coding for AG201 to histidine, arginine 201 to cysteine or histidine, or GLN229 to arginine. Though you don't remember anything, just remember that here the mutation is in this GS alpha, and as a result this leads to increased GTPase activity, which will activate the PIT1 induction, PIT1 induction, and it will also activate adenyl cyclase, which increases cyclic AMP, thus causes somatostatin proliferation. Okay, so this is one way. Second, the loss of heterozygosity in chromosome 11q13 and 13 and 9. Loss of heterozygosity in 11q chromosome 11q13, 13 and 9, and base FGF, and loss of negative feedback inhibition from and estrogen mediated paracrine angiogenesis, and if you see activated oncogene, that is RAS oncogene or pituitary transforming genes, all these can result in pituitary adenoma. So you should just remember at least these names of the genes. Then we have genetic syndromes. There are some genetic syndromes which are associated with this pituitary tumors. So one of it is multiple endocrine neoplasia or MEN1. This multiple endocrine neoplasia or MEN1, this is, here there is inactivated germline mutation in MEN1N gene on chromosome 11q13. Here there is inactivating germline mutation in MEN1N gene on chromosome 13 will result in this MEN1 syndrome, or it is also associated with multiple endocrine neoplasia 4, where the mutation is in CDKN1B and on chromosome 12p13. It is associated with hyperparathyroidism and pituitary adenoma. Then we have one more syndrome which is called as Carney syndrome. In Carney syndrome, here it is associated with mutation in PRKR1A gene on chromosome 17q22 to 24. PRKAR1 gene which is on chromosome 17q23 to 24. Here you see spotty skin pigmentation. This Carney syndrome is associated with spotty skin pigmentation, myxedema, or endocrine tumor, that is pituitary adenoma, adrenal hyperplasia or testicular tumors. It is associated with schwannomas, and acromegaly is seen in Carney syndrome. So spotty skin pigmentation, myxedema, endocrine tumor, pituitary adenoma, which includes adrenal hyperplasia and testicular tumors, schwannomas, and acromegaly are associated with this Carney syndrome, which is in turn associated with pituitary tumors. Then we have the next group, which is McCune-Albright syndrome. So in this McCune-Albright syndrome, there is GNAS mutation, GNAS mutation is seen, where there is GS alpha mutation, and it also contains some of the features. The features of McCune-Albright syndrome include polyostotic fibrous dysplasia, pigmented skin patches. In the endocrine, it can include acromegaly, adrenal adenoma, autonomous ovarian dysfunction. So in McCune-Albright syndrome, here this McCune-Albright syndrome, we see polyostotic fibrous dysplasia, pigmented skin patches, endocrinology like acromegaly, adrenal adenoma, or adenomatous ovarian dysfunction is seen. Then we have familial acromegaly. It is also associated with familial acromegaly. Familial acromegaly occurs due to the mutation of gene AIP gene, which is aryl hydrocarbon receptor inactivating gene. AIP gene is which will encode for aryl hydrocarbon receptor inactivating gene, and it is also associated with loss of heterozygosity at chromosome 11q13. Then this is important thing about the these are the syndromes which are associated with pituitary adenoma. Now we will see genetic alterations and association with pituitary adenoma. The same thing we can divide it into. Pituitary adenoma can occur due to two things. One, it can be gain of function mutation. Second, there can be loss of function mutation, right? If you see gain of function mutation, the syndromes which are involved in gain of function mutation are McCune-Albright syndrome, which we have already learnt about it. Then we have protein kinase A regulatory subunit 1 is involved, that is PRKAR1, that is protein kinase A regulatory subunit 1, that is Carney syndrome, is also associated with this gain of function mutation. Cyclin D1 overexpression and HRAS mutation, all these are associated with gain of function mutation. Then we have loss of function mutation also. In loss of function mutation, genes like MEN1, CDKN1B, which is coding for germline inactivating mutation. Similarly, aryl hydrocarbon receptor interacting protein, aryl carbohydrate receptor interacting protein, which is also a germline mutation, and retinoblastoma gene. All these are loss of function mutations. Loss of function mutations include MEN1, CDKN1B, aryl hydrocarbon receptor interacting protein, and retinoblastoma gene, RB gene. Then if you see what is the most common cause of hyperpituitarism, if you were asked what is the most common cause of hyperpituitarism, the most common cause of hyperpituitarism is adenoma, that too microadenoma, which is arising from the anterior lobe. In this adenoma also it is mainly microadenoma, and this microadenoma is arising from the anterior lobe. Okay, most common cause is microadenoma. Then if you see pituitary adenoma, which we are talking about, this can be either functional pituitary adenoma, and we also have non-functional pituitary adenoma. In functional pituitary adenoma, this is functional, so this can be due to lactotrophs where there is increased prolactin. Okay, this can be lactotroph adenoma, or there can be silent lactotroph adenoma also. Both these will increase prolactin. Okay, whenever there is increased prolactin, in females it causes galactorrhea and amenorrhea, whereas in males it causes sexual dysfunction and infertility. Okay, it can also cause somatotrophic adenoma. In somatotrophic adenoma, there is increased growth hormone. Even this can be silent or sparsely granulated or densely granulated. Then we have mammosomatotrophic adenoma, where there is increased growth hormone and prolactin. There can be corticotrophic adenoma, which is densely granulated, sparsely granulated, or silent, which can increase the production of ACTH and pro-opiomelanocortin is seen. All these will lead to either Cushing syndrome or Nelson syndrome. Then we have thyrotrophic adenoma, which can be symptomatic or silent. Both these will lead to increased TSH. There can be gonadotrophic adenoma, which is again silent or massive symptomatic. Okay, so which causes hypogonadism. So these are functional, that means based on the type of cell which has increased, so they have their specific function. Then we have non-functional adenoma. So in non-functional adenoma, if they are large enough, then the normal pituitary parenchyma is destroyed. Because the normal pituitary parenchyma is destroyed, it can cause hypopituitarism. So in non-functional pituitary adenoma, if it is large, because of destruction of normal pituitary parenchyma, it can cause hypopituitarism. So this is the important classification of pituitary adenoma. And as I have already said you, pituitary adenoma can be divided into two types. We have microadenoma and macroadenoma. We call the pituitary adenoma as microadenoma if the dimensions, if the diameter is less than 1 centimeter, if the size is less than 1 centimeter, then that is microadenoma. If the size is more than 1 centimeter, then that is macroadenoma. Then if you we will see the morphology of pituitary adenoma. So in the morphology of pituitary adenoma, first if you see grossly, the pituitary adenoma, if it is small, it is confined to sella turcica only. Okay, that is the pituitary chamber where the pituitary lies. So it is confined to sella turcica only if it is small. But in cases if it is larger, it can erode the sella turcica, and clinoid process. And if it erodes the sella turcica and clinoid process, okay, it extends superficially through the diaphragma cella into the supracellular space. It can extend into the supracellular region, okay, through the diaphragma cella, that is one. And it can also compress the optic chiasma. Once it compresses the optic chiasma, it will lead to visual field abnormalities and increased intracranial pressure. So if it compresses the optic chiasma, it causes visual field abnormalities and increases intracranial pressure. So this is important thing in pituitary adenoma. Then invasive pituitary, there is a terminology which is called as invasive pituitary adenoma. In invasive pituitary adenoma, if we call something as invasive pituitary adenoma, in this it will infiltrate the cavernous and sphenoid sinuses, or it can infiltrate the brain also. Then we call it as invasive pituitary adenoma. I will show you pictures of all these just for few minutes, okay. You have histologically, you see uniform polygonal cells which are either acidophils, basophils or chromophilic, and these are arranged in either sheaths or cord-like structures with less connective tissue or reticulin framework. The main distinguishing feature between the pituitary adenoma with non-neoplastic anterior pituitary parenchyma is cellular polymorphism, absence of significant reticulin network, that is reticulin negative, absence of significant reticulin network or reticulin stain being negative. So these are the main distinguishing features. How are you going to distinguish the pituitary adenoma with non-neoplastic anterior pituitary adenoma parenchyma? This is mainly by these ways. One, you will have to do we will have to go to cellular monomorphism, or there can be absence of significant reticulin network in cellular monomorphism, or it can be due to absence of significant reticulin network. If there is absence of significant reticulin network, that is reticulin stain being negative. So these are the two main distinguishing features between pituitary adenoma and non-neoplastic anterior pituitary parenchyma. Then we have something called as atypical adenomas. See, in atypical adenomas, there is increased mitotic activity. In these, you will see increased mitotic activity, and there is p53 expression and TP53 mutation is seen. These atypical adenomas are most commonly seen in 3rd to 4th decade, and it is common in males and females. Okay, so this is something called as atypical pituitary adenoma, which is also important. Now, after this, see, atypical pituitary adenoma is the one with increased mitotic activity. Then this pituitary adenoma is most commonly seen in 3rd to 4th decade. Okay, it is most commonly seen in females. If you were asked what is the most common pituitary adenoma, the most common pituitary adenoma is prolactinoma, is the most common pituitary adenoma. Among all the types of adenoma, the most common pituitary adenoma is prolactinoma. Then that is most common. What is the second most common pituitary adenoma? The second most common pituitary adenoma is growth hormone secreting adenoma, is the second most common pituitary adenoma. Okay. Then what is the investigation of choice for this pituitary adenoma? Investigation of choice is you will have to do an MRI, and on MRI you can see the solid lesions in pituitary adenoma, right. So investigation of choice is in MRI. So what do you see in MRI? In MRI you see cellular mass with supracellular extension is seen, and you will also see solid snow figure or figure of 8 appearance is also seen. Okay, solid snowman appearance or figure of 8 appearance is seen. Here in pituitary adenoma you will not see any calcification, there is no calcification, and you will see hypointense lesions on T1 is seen in MRI of pituitary adenoma. Then if you see full endocrine profile, there will be growth hormone, prolactin, gonadotropins like FSH, LH, TSS and ACTH, all these should also be done. And then the treatment depends upon the type. For example, if we are dealing with the prolactinoma, then you can give bromocriptine to decrease the prolactin production. because bromocriptine is a dopamine agonist, and that will also inhibit the prolactin. Okay, then we can do surgery. In the surgery, indications for surgery are important. The surgery indications mainly depend if those include, first, if the tumor is growth secreting tumor. If the tumor is growth secreting tumor, then that can lead to then you should do surgery. The surgery is important or is done if the tumor is growth hormone secreting tumor. If there is primary Cushing syndrome is associated with pituitary adenoma, then we should do surgery. If adenoma is causing acute visual deterioration, or if there is non-prolactin secreting macroadenoma causing mass effect. See, surgery is indicated if there is growth hormone secreting tumor or primary Cushing's disease or adenoma causing visual deteriorations, or in non-protein secreting macroadenoma causing mass effect. In these conditions, you should do surgery. So surgery can be of two types. One, we have sublabial approach, where we approach it through our mouth, okay, below the lip. Labial is lip, so sublabial is below the lip. Here we are approaching the pituitary gland through our oral cavity, where we have transsphenoidal approach, where we approach it through the nasal cavity. Okay, this is transsphenoidal approach. Now, there is something called as radiosurgery also. What is the indications of radiosurgery? So the indications of radiosurgery are it can be used as a primary therapy, or we can use it as an adjuvant therapy after subtotal resection, or you can use it for recurrent disease. For recurrent disease in whom already you have resected the pituitary adenoma with a surgery, in them you can do this radiosurgery. Okay, now what is important here is there are some two one-liners which are important. Okay, I will write them here. So 1 minute. So there are two important points, that is, we have something called as corticotroph cell. We have corticotroph cell adenomas. These corticotroph cell adenomas are PAS positive. Why are they PAS positive? This is due to the presence of carbohydrates in pre-opiomelanocorticotrophin. Because of the presence of carbohydrates in pre-opiomelanocorticotrophin, they are PAS positive, periodic acid stain positive. And one more thing, if there are no hormones produced, if for hormone negative adenomas, hormone negative adenomas are also called as null carcinomas. That means they are called as null cell adenomas. Hormone negative adenomas are called as null cell adenomas. That means they do not produce any hormones, right? I'll show you some pictures now, just a minute. So these are the pictures showing the pituitary adenoma. So if you see here in this picture, you can see the figure of 8 appearance here. Okay, this is the coronal view, this is sagittal view. In both these you can see the figure of 8 appearance, and here in this is the gross appearance of pituitary adenoma. Okay, where you can see this pituitary adenoma, which is macroadenoma, which has you can even see the ventricular distortion. Ventricular system has been distorted. Okay, then you have this pituitary adenoma microscopically. You will see you are seeing many rounded cells, and there are these rounded uniform cells are seen here, and these are pituitary adenoma. Okay, so these are the pictures of pituitary adenoma. So thank you guys for watching my lecture. In the next class we will learn about craniopharyngioma. Thank you.